Let's go back to Manderley. Since the release of the 1940 screen adaptation of Daphne du Maurier's Gothic romance Rebecca, there have been several television adaptations, 5 miniseries, a 2020 feature film remake, and a musical that was a smash hit in Spain and Austria, but its Broadway debut was a little bit problematic considering that, well, it never opened and some of the investors ended up the subject of criminal investigations. That is a story in itself. But the very first adaptation of Rebecca in any medium was actually a 1938 radio broadcast by the Mercury Theater during the Campbell Soup Hour. That's right, our boy Orson Welles produced, wrote, and played Maxim de Winter with Margaret Sullivan as Mrs. de Winter. But the 1940 film looms large over all subsequent productions. Helmed by director Alfred Hitchcock and producer David O. Selznick, it's the most prestigious of all the productions and was nominated for a total of 11 Academy Awards. It won Best Film, and it won Best Cinematography Black and White for cameraman George Barnes. And even though our narrator, Mrs. de Winter, tells us from the very beginning that we can never go back there, we have gone back to Manderley time and again with varying degrees of success. In a previous video, I went into detail about how Hitchcock and Selznick and the film's production team successfully brought Manderley alive on screen, and I'll link that video below. The mini-screen incarnations of Rebecca included several extremely truncated versions that aired on one-hour television anthology dramas, such as the Philco Television Playhouse in 1948 and Robert Montgomery Presents in 1950.
April 8th, live from New York. Rebecca, starring James Mason, Joan Hackett, Lloyd Buckner, Murray Matheson, and special guest star Nina Foch on Theater 62.
Is Manderley your perfect place?
But it's the 1979 BBC miniseries starring Jeremy Brett as Maxim and Joanna David as Mrs. de Winter and Anna Massey as Mrs. Danvers that really kicked off the whole Rebecca revival. In this retelling, which was said to be du Maurier's favorite, Manderley, while beautiful, comes off as more of a stage set than an active character in the story. Contemporary viewers, however, were mesmerized by the miniseries, and it encouraged many young girls to read the novel for the first time. And while the performances are first-rate, it's Rebecca's room that lacks all the romance and intrigue that's supposed to offer us a key to her personality. Mrs. de Winter is meant to get a sense of this woman from the shrine of a bedroom. And this room is just a bit too dark and a bit too gloomy, I think, to be the personification of Rebecca. In 1997, we get another miniseries produced by ITV and PBS, this one starring Charles Dance and Amelia Fox. And Manderley is sufficiently gothic. Its exteriors are massive and looming. However, once again, the interiors filmed at Shepperton Studios are slightly less than, well, glamorous. We know that du Maurier took her inspiration for Manderley's interiors from Milton Hall and her visits there during World War I. It seems to me that a lot of the subsequent filmmakers have forgotten where the inspiration for the house came from. We do get a sense that Mrs. de Winter is overwhelmed by her new home and confused and intimidated, and this version definitely benefits from a larger budget. Once again, Rebecca's room holds none of the mystery or glamour or sex appeal that we know the dead woman possessed. Interestingly, in this one, Rebecca is never seen full on, but she is shown from behind, and there are frequent flashes of her eyes and mouth, and her full face is shown at a distance, which was a choice. I don't know if I agree with it. I think the mystery lies in not seeing Rebecca at all and having her conjured in our imaginations. In 2008, an Italian version aired on Italian television. Here, the Cornish coast was replaced by the Italian coast, specifically Trieste, and Manderley looks way more Italian than English. It's a strange but interesting mashup, because the story is still a very English story and takes place in England with English characters. It's just filmed in Italy with Italian actors. Maxim and Mrs. de Winter are played by Alesso Boni and Cristiana Capotondi, respectively. So, as much as I hate to admit it, because otherwise it was such a mess of an adaptation, the most recent Netflix version actually kind of really captured the mystery and menace of Manderley. In this version, we can see the obvious influence of Hitchcock, Selznick, and Wheeler on the production design. In fact, Rebecca's bedroom is pretty much a replica of the room from the 1940s version. There's an effort here to make the house a realized character. Mrs. De Winter, played by Lily James, seems to be very overwhelmed and intimidated by this house and the staff. And while I would not put this on the same footing as the 1940s version, I will say that the effort here was truly made to give us a sense of a house that is existing on equal footing as a character next to Maxim, Mrs. Danvers, and Mrs. De Winter. So, looking at all of these adaptations next to each other, the thing I realized is that one of the most important elements of telling the story is having the commitment from the beginning to making Manderley as important as all the other characters in the movie. We can never go back to Manderley again, that much is certain. But it's one of the 8 million stories in the Cinema Cities. I'll see you in the next one.